Gita, the Gopi's Song of Separation, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 31, with commentary by Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta and Narayana Gosvami Maharaja. Preface. The Sanskrit word Veda means embodiment of all knowledge, both spiritual and material. The highest and most sublime wisdom is found in Vedic knowledge, which has been passed down to modern times from the beginning of creation through an unbroken chain of self-realized spiritual masters and disciples. We learn from the great sages and saints of India that the transcendental literature called Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all this timeless Vedic knowledge, and it was manifested in this world by Sri Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of God Himself. The all-cognizant and fully independent source of creation, maintenance and destruction is described in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam as Shri Krishna, and that supreme absolute truth is present on each page of this great epic. The sages teach that Gopi Gita is one of the Srimad Bhagavatam's 5 most important chapters. We are therefore first presenting to the respected reader the miraculous, magical effect of reading or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we present the benefit of reading or hearing Gopi Gita. The glory of Srimad Bhagavatam is given in the Bhagavatam itself. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people who do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:7-6. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What then is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1-2. As mentioned above, Gopi Gita is one of the Srimad Bhagavatam's 5 most important chapters. In his discourse on verse 14 of Gopi Gita, Srila Bhaktivedanta and Narayana Gosvami Maharaja reveals one of the benefits of reading or hearing it. There are others who can hear about Krishna's pastimes. They hear that Krishna is playing his flute and that all human beings, animals, birds, and other creatures in Vrindävana are hearing his flute song. As a result of listening to narrations of his pastimes, these persons too develop the ambition to hear his flute. They will certainly give up all desire to taste the forms and qualities of this world. They will never want Swarga or even liberation from birth and death. The Sanskrit words Gopi Gita means the beautiful song of the gopis. We learn from the ancient Vedic literature and from our lineage of spiritual masters that the gopis are the transcendental expansions of Sri Krishna's inherent, inconceivable power. His pleasure-giving potency, Sri Radha. It is by the influence of this internal power that the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, exists in 4 features. His personal form as the supreme cause of all causes and supreme relisher of all transcendental mellows. His incarnations along with their bodies an infinity of divine pastimes, all living entities and the unmanifest state of material nature. We read in the Vedic scripture, Sri Brahma Samhita, verse 37. Sri Krishna, who is all-pervading and who exists within the hearts of all, resides in his abode known as Golok Dhama along with Sri Radha, who is the embodiment of his pleasure potency and the counterpart of his own spiritual realm. She is the epitome of transcendental rasa and is expert in 64 arts. Sri Radha and Sri Krishna are accompanied by the gopis, who, as expansions of Sri Radha's own transcendental body, are infused with blissful spiritual rasa. I worship that original personality, Sri Govinda. Our predecessor spiritual master, Srila Jiva Gosvami, writes in his commentary to this verse, "The function of the Supreme Lord's own pleasure potency in the form of his beloved gopis is non-different from his intrinsic form and nature. Thus, the gopis are manifestations of his personal potency and all embodiments of the most elevated, amorous mellow." Gopi Gita is sung by these very gopis, and the magic of their song is praised in Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, when these gopis loudly chant the glories of Sri Krishna, the vibration purifies the three worlds. We pray that our readers will derive the greatest pleasure and benefit from Srila Bhaktivedanta and Narayana Gosvami Maharaja's discourses on the divine song. Aspiring for the service of Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, the editorial team, Gaur Purnima, March 2009. A note from the editors. In the early 1990s, a small group of sannyasis and other devotees were regularly visiting Srila Bhaktivedanta and Narayana Gosvami Maharaj for the guidance and instructions. Seated sometimes in his quarters in Vrindävana and sometimes in Mathurä, Srila Maharaj answered their questions and explained to them the deep inner meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam through the writings of our Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas, spiritual masters. One of the main topics of discussion was Gopi Gita, the Gopi's song of separation from Krishna, which they sang piteously after he had left Ras dance arena. 5,000 years ago, the great sage Srila Jiva Gosvami mercifully revealed the Gopi's divine song during his recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam to the saintly king Parikshit. As they sat together on the banks of the Ganges, surrounded by numerous sages and self-realized souls, those Gopi Gita verses later manifested as Srimad Bhagavatam's Canto 10, Chapter 31. A most elevated, sacred, and confidential subject, Gopi Gita is far beyond the comprehension of conditioned souls. Therefore, with deep compassion, certain recipients of the Gopi's mercy have written commentaries on its verses. Srila Narayana Gosvami Maharaja explains, Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu respected Srila Sridhar Swami's commentary. Using that as a foundation, Srila Sanatana Goswami established Mahaprabhu's beautiful mood of bhakti in his own commentary on Canto 10. Srila Jiva Gosvami gave further light to that explanation with his Vaishnav Toshni commentary. Then, accepting both commentaries as remnants, Srila Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakur extracted their ambrosial essence and composed his own. These acharyas' commentaries were carefully handed down and taught by the self-realized spiritual masters in disciplic succession, all of whom were immersed in the sublime truths therein. Then, in 1966, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, famous throughout the world as Srila Prabhupada, carefully carried the ancient Vedic culture to the West. He did this for the purpose of creating a worldwide platform upon which the troubled people of this iron age of quarrel and hypocrisy could access these hidden truths. In his summary study of Canto 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, called Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he introduced the verses and commentaries of the Gopi's song in English and also translated over 60 volumes of Vedic literature. He did this in order to bring the worldwide audience to its gradual understanding. Then, in order to further illuminate this divine topic, Srila Bhaktivedanta and Narayana Gosvami Maharaja gave elaborate explanation of the acharyas' contributions in a series of English discourses in the early 1990s. These discourses were unique because, although Srila Narayana Gosvami Maharaj had previously spoken in Hindi on this subject to his senior students in Vrindävana and Mathurä, this was the first and the only time he spoke about it so extensively in English. He stated in his discourse on verse 2, some of this explanation is from Srila Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. There are also points that he has not explained, and in those cases I have taken the explanation from Srila Jiva Gosvami's commentary and also from my heart. Srila Narayana Gosvami Maharaj's English audience consisted of disciples of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, and he revealed something to them of his own service to their Gurudeva. I feel that I am serving him, he told them. I feel this is in my heart. Therefore, I do not care for my own time. I take it as my bhajan sadhan that I am helping you all. I pray that he will bestow his mercy upon me and that he will tell my Gurudeva also to bestow his mercy, because they were bosom friends. When some of the devotees in his audience suggested that a book be compiled of his wonderful discourses, he agreed, and he added that although the book would be available to all people and everyone would benefit, it would be specially precious to the qualified persons. Several years later, in 2005, while the editors were preparing the manuscript of his discourses, Srila Maharaj began his formal Hindi Bhava Anuvad translations of the Sanskrit commentaries of Srila Sridhar Goswami, Srila Jiva Gosvami, and Srila Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakur on Rasa Panchadhyayi. These 5 chapters, which describe Sri Krishna's Ras dance and other related pastimes with his Gopi beloveds, are considered to be Panch Prana, the 5 life airs of Srimad Bhagavatam. The editors had the fortune of being able to read the English translation of Srila Maharaj's pre-published manuscript of the commentaries of Gopi Gita, which is one of these 5 chapters, and that helped a great deal in preparing this presentation of his lectures. Srila Sridhar Swami's commentary is entitled Bhavarth Deepika, which means illuminations on the inner meanings of the moods. Srila Jiva Gosvami is the author of the Vaishnav Toshni commentary, which means bringing satisfaction to the Vaishnavas. And Srila Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakur has given us Sararth Darshani, meaning revealing the essential meanings. The editors asked Srila Narayana Gosvami Maharaj if he would kindly give a name to the written form of his own discourses, his spoken commentary, and he named it Bhav Prakashika Vritti, meaning the commentary that illuminates the mood. Srila Maharaj has used many Sanskrit terms in his commentary, which are usually explained in English, either in the text or in a footnote. Where you find the explanation insufficient, you are invited to turn to the glossary. Where a footnote does not include a specific reference site, it has usually been taken from one of the glossaries of Srila Maharaj's other books. Following the tradition of our spiritual preceptors, we use standard diacritical markings to indicate the pronunciation of the Sanskrit words. Attached to the inside back cover, you will find a CD of Srila Maharaj signing the 19 verses of Gopi Gita as well as the first 2 verses of the next chapter that describe Sri Krishna reappearing to the gopis. The CD also contains Srila Maharaj's Hindi introduction to these Gopi Gita verses and the translation of which is given in the accompanying CD booklet. Finally, the CD also contains 2 audio lectures given by Srila Maharaj in English, which elaborate on some of the pastimes and philosophical truths surrounding Gopi Gita. We humbly beg you to forgive any mistakes made by us in compiling Srila Bhaktivedanta and Narayana Gosvami Maharaja's presentation. Excerpt from Introduction. Upon seeing Krishna dancing with all the other gopis and at the same time dancing with her, Radhika left the Ras dance in sulky mood. Introduction. Gopi Gita is part of Ras Panchadhyay, the 5 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam that relate Rasa Leela. The body has 5 kinds of life airs, or Panchaprana, residing in the heart, and among these 5, one is most vital. The 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam are likened to 12 parts of a body. The 10th canto is the heart of that body. Within that heart, the 5 chapters that constitute Rasa Panchadhyay are its 5 life airs, and among them, Gopi Gita is the foremost. We begin our discussion of Gopi Gita by remembering the chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam that describes the gopis' worship of the goddess Katyayani Devi to attain Krishna as their husband. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:22-1. Shri Shuka Uvacha Hemante Prathame Masi Nand Vraja Kamarikaha Cherur Havishyam Bhunjanaha Katyanya Archan Vratam. During the first month of winter season, the young unmarried girls of Gokul observed the vow of worshipping goddess Katyayani. For the entire month, they ate only unspiced khichdi. The gopis who observed the vow to worship Katyayani were young and unmarried. What then was Sri Krishna's age at this time? Krishna had left Gokul at the age of 3.5. According to Srila Vyasadeva and Srila Shukdev Goswami, he was 7 years old when he lifted the mountain, Giriraj Govardhan, on the little finger of his left hand. After he lifted Giriraja, all the elders and their priests gathered together and told Nanda Baba, "You should not treat Krishna as if he were your son. He is actually not your son. He may be a demigod, or perhaps he is God, or someone like God. We have heard that Narayan himself has come in the form of Krishna, and perhaps it is true. So, you should not treat him like an ordinary boy. Do not bind his hands and do not chastise or punish him. He is only 7 years old, and yet he lifted a mountain like Govardhan. How is that possible? This is indeed mysterious." Oh, Nanda Baba laughed. "I have heard that Gopas only became mature and intelligent at the age of 80. They cannot properly decide anything before then, because their minds are not fixed. Krishna is just an ordinary boy. God has far more good qualities than even the perfected saints. Such saints do not become angry, and they are not disturbed by hunger, thirst, or any other material distress. They do not steal or tell lies. Krishna tells lies. He weeps and becomes angry. He plays tricks on people, and is naughty in so many other ways. He sometimes cries for butter and sugar candy. If he does not get what he wants, he becomes furious and hurls all the items in our home onto the ground, and then scatters them here and there. This is conclusive proof that he is not God. In any case, if you would insist that he is God, he is still my son. So I will admonish and punish him, and treat him as a father should treat his child." Nanda Baba continued to laugh at the notion that Krishna is God. Then Yogamaya came, and by her influence, everyone present forgot this idea. This incident took place during the month of Kartik, when Sri Krishna was 7 years old, and it was just after Kartik that the gopis worshipped Katyayani. There were 2 groups of gopis, married and unmarried. Although it was the unmarried gopis who worshipped Katyayani, the married gopis like Lalita, Vishakha, and Srimati Radhika also had Purvarag, the gopis' tender love for Krishna before their first intimate meeting with him. This is because, although they had met with him so many times, they always felt the excited anticipation of a first meeting. The unmarried gopis were somewhat younger than the married gopis. Srimati Radhika is 13 and a half years old and Krishna is 14. Lalita is 27 days older than Srimati Radhika and Vishakha was born on the same day as Radhika. Rupa Manjari and Rati Manjari are a little over 12 years, so they are about 1.5 years younger than Krishna. This means that when Krishna was 7 years old, the gopis who were engaged in the worship of Katyayani Devi were about 6, but they already had love and affection for him. Their love for Krishna was not kama or amorous affection, because kama is not possible at such an age. They loved him deeply, but without kama. Krishna told those gopis engaged in worship, "Next year, during the autumn season, I will fulfill your desires." Then, a year later, when Krishna was about 8 years old, he played his flute to call the gopis to the Ras dance. It is said that Krishna was in Vrindavan until he was 10 years old, and within that time he performed Ras Leela as well as all his Vrindavan pastimes. In other words, he appeared to the 14 years old when he was actually 10, and the gopis also appeared to be older than they were. Speaking in a humorous mood, typical of the playful nature of maidservant of Srimati Radhika, Srila Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakur has said that they grew up very quickly because they used to eat so much butter and sugar candy. In actual fact, the reason they appeared to be teenagers is because of the influence of Yogamaya. In their previous births, some of the young unmarried gopis had been personified Vedic scriptures called Shrutis, and they are known as Shruti Chari gopis. Some had been personified Upanishads and are known as Upanishad Chari gopis. Some had been sages from the Dandak Aranya forest or Dandak Aranya rishis. Some had been princess Rajkumaris from Janakpuri, and some daughters of the demigods Devakanya. Among the gopis, some had the association of the Nitya Siddha gopis, and they also had Purvarag. These gopis easily entered the Rasalila whether they were married or not. The unmarried gopis were already betrothed, and therefore they also thought of Krishna as their beloved in a paramour mood. On the other hand, the married gopis who had Purvaraga but did not have the association of Nitya Siddha gopis were stopped from entering. The gopis described in the above mentioned verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:22-1 had association with the Nitya Siddha gopis. We know this because at the end of the month they invited Radhika, Lalita, Vishakha, Chitra and all other such gopis to join them in their worship. This means that they had the association of those gopis and consequently they could easily enter the Ras dance. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Nitya Siddha gopis and those who had their association entered the Ras Leela without difficulty, whereas the married gopis with sons or daughters were checked by Yogamaya. Even though they had Purvaraga, they could not go. It appeared that it was their husbands who had obstructed them, but actually it was Yogamaya who did so. She had entered their minds of their husbands, fathers, mothers and their relatives, influencing them to prevent the gopis from going. If Yogamaya had wanted them to join the Ras Leela, she would have made duplicate forms of those gopis. In this way, the real gopis would have been able to leave their homes unnoticed and enter Ras Leela. However, she could not help these gopis because they had some traces of consciousness that was not favorable for fully developed paramour love in relationship to Krishna or Parkiya Bhava. They still had the conception, this is my husband and these are my children. Their affection was not solely for Krishna but was shared with many others. We are now beginning the devotional process. If our eternal spiritual form is that of a gopi, we will develop an increasing taste to serve as a gopi. We will gradually be able to perform sadhana like Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and in this way we will develop a yearning to be like the gopis. Now, in our present situation, by reading books on this subject, we must clearly define our goal. Success is sure if, as we read and remember, we long to attain that goal. I must have that mood one day. I will not accept any other goal. We must be completely uncompromising, not accepting any other goal, no matter who offers it. We should think, even if Sri Krishna himself comes and wants to offer me an alternative goal, I will not accept it. Who can be so determined? Only those with the swarupa or intrinsic spiritual nature of a gopi can act in this way. Almost all the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have this kind of swarupa, although there are few exceptions, such as Murari Gupta, who is Hanuman in the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, and Anupam, another eternal associate of Sri Rama. Hanuman and other elevated associates whose swarupa is different from that of the gopis have no taste for the subject matter, even if they hear about it. The same is true of Srila Haridas Thakur, because he was Brahma. According to the descriptions of his character in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his swarupa was not that of a gopi. Brahma is the original guru of our sampradaya. In the 10th canto, 14th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, he prayed to attain the dust from the lotus feet of the Vrajvasis, but he did not state clearly that it should be the gopis' lotus foot dust. Uddhav, on the other hand, specifically prayed for the dust of the gopis' feet. We see in Brahma Samhita that Brahma performed worship by means of both the Gopala mantra and Kama Gayatri, but that was only to gain power for creation and not to attain Gopi Prema. 1 year after Krishna made his promise to the gopis, on the full moon night in autumn, he looked at the moon and began to play his flute. He considered, our forefather, the moon, has a beloved other than his wife, Rohini. His beloved is Purva Disha, the eastern horizon. The most erudite Srila Vyasadeva, who knew how to apply all literary metaphors and ornaments or alankara, marvelously described the scene as follows. Krishna was thinking, the hands of our forefather, the moon, are smeared with kumkum. Those hands, his rays, are decorating the face of his beloved Purvadisha without any difficulty, and she is shyly accepting that reddish ornamentation. Why should I not do the same? In other words, the reddish rays of the moon radiated throughout the forest, bathing the trees and the rivers and everything else in it in a red light. In that ambrosial atmosphere, thoughts of the gopis came to Krishna's mind, and he remembered his promise to fulfill their innermost desires. He pondered, by diffusing the reddish hue of his gentle rays and by glowing with the effulgence of newly applied vermilion, Chandra, the moon, has reminded me of my promise and has placed within my heart the inspiration to fulfill it. This is the perfect moment for me to do so. Then, on that full moon night of the autumn season, he played a beautiful melody on his flute, and the gopis came running to him. But when they arrived, he told them to return to Vraja. A lady should serve her husband, he said, regardless of his qualities. Her husband may be poor or plagued with diseases, but she should serve him under all circumstances. At first, the gopis did not say anything in reply, but within their minds and hearts they questioned, does he really mean it? Or is he joking with us? They observed him closely as he tried to cleverly hide his real intention. It seemed that he was honestly expressing himself in a straightforward manner, but in fact he was not. Finally, the gopis said, you are our guru, and as such, you are giving us so many instructions. We know that even in the presence of God, a person should serve his Gurudeva first. So, let us first serve you, our Gurudeva, before we return to serve our husbands. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tatheva bhajamyaham mam vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. Bhagavad Gita 4:11. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Partha. Shri Krishna was instructing the gopis and also telling them, I am God, so you should obey me. The gopis replied, We agree that if you are God, we should certainly obey you, but our first duty is to serve our Gurudeva. When we have executed that order, we will obey your instructions to serve our husbands. Our second consideration is this. We know that God is our Father, God is our real husband, and God is everything. So if you are God, then you are both our husband and our Guru. In every way, if you do not accept our service, you will be guilty of acting against the principles of religion. You are giving us instructions on religious principles, but you should practice this yourself. At last, Ras began. Krishna danced with Srimati Radhika in the center of the circle of gopis, and at the same time he danced with each of the gopis, comprising the circle. It is not that he expanded into as many manifestations of himself as there were gopis, because in Vrindavan all his pastimes are free from the mood of opulence, Aishwarya. Rather, he danced so quickly, like a fire band orbiting in a circle, that it simply looked as if he were constantly and simultaneously dancing with each and every gopi. Had he expanded into many manifestations of himself, this pastime would have been Aishwarya Leela. Instead, he was engaged in human-like pastimes or Nara Leela. Many commentaries have written that Krishna manifested his Kaya Vyuhu, direct expansions of his personal form, when he was dancing in Ras Leela, but Srila Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakur says that this is not so. He refutes the idea that the expansions of Krishna's form performed this pastime, asserting that if his expansions had done so, it would have been Leela of Vaikuntha. He explains that in fact only Krishna's original form or Swayam Rupa performed the transcendental pastime. We thus conclude that Krishna moved like a lightning flash from gopi to gopi, dancing with each one in turn. Srimati Radhika saw that Krishna was dancing with her. Then, as she cast her gaze over all the other gopis, she saw that Krishna was dancing with each of them as well. Each gopi thought, Krishna is dancing only with me. Srimati Radhika alone could see him with each and every gopi. Krishna's performance of Ras Leela in this way, manifesting no Aishwarya by bringing forth expansions of his form, but in fact whirling from gopi to gopi, was certainly miraculous. Moreover, he performed many varieties of activities with the gopis as they danced together. He asked one gopi if she were fatigued. He gently wiped drops of perspiration from the face of another, and he fastened ankle bells on the ankles of another. With each and every gopi, he engaged in various interactions, and thus each gopi became maddened in their love for him. The gopis' madness here, in which they were intoxicated by their own good fortune, is called Saubhagya Madhu. In this regard, Srimad Bhagavatam states in 10:29-48, Tasam tat saubhagmadam vikshya manancha keshavaha prashmaya prasadaya tatrevantaradhiyat. Lord Keshav, seeing the gopis too proud of their good fortune, wanted to relieve them of their pride and show them further mercy. Thus he immediately disappeared. It is stated here that the gopis as an entire group exhibited both Saubhagyamada and Mana. However, If we take a closer look at the meaning, it becomes apparent that Mana was only exhibited by Srimati Radhika. Only she could see Krishna dancing with the other gopis. The other gopis did not see this, and thus they were intoxicated by their good fortune, in which they perceived Krishna dancing with them alone. When a hero or Nayak is controlled by a heroine or Naika, the heroine thinks herself to be the most fortunate beloved. This fortune is called Saubhagya, and as it evolves, it brings her to Saubhagya Mada. Generally, Mada means intoxication through drinking, but Saubhagya Mad means intoxication from the pride of thinking. In all of Raja, there is no one equal to me in good fortune. In this state, the gopis became so proud that if they had been aware of Krishna's dancing with the other gopis, they would have developed mana. Then, in that angry and sulky mood, they would have been completely unable to continue participating in Rasa Leela with the other gopis. Instead, each gopi was convinced that she had Krishna fully under her control, and that he was captivated and controlled by her and obedient to her every command. Krishna understood this and considered, I have decided to sport with all the gopis and fulfill all their most cherished desires, but there is no hope of that happening unless they change their mood. Somehow, their pride must be removed. He then saw that Radhika was no longer there in Ras Leela. In her man, she had abruptly left that place and was going elsewhere. Then suddenly, Krishna also disappeared, and all of the gopis began their search for him. Some commentators say that Krishna became invisible, but Srila Vishvanatha Chakravarti Thakur explains that he did not. Rather, he went to a nearby kunja and hid there. There were 4 kinds of gopis present in the Ras Leela on the bank of Yamuna: Swapaksha, those in Radhika's own or Swa, group or Paksha. Second, Vipaksha, those in the rival group of Chandravali. Third, Suhrit Paksha, those who are friendly towards Radhika. And Tatastha Paksha, those who are neutral to her party. Actually, Swapaksha can refer to either Radhika's group or Chandravali's group. For those in Radhika's group, Chandravali is Vipaksha, and for those in Chandravali's group, Radhika is Vipaksha. Shyamala is friendly toward Radhika, which means she is neutral to Chandravali. Bhadra, on the other hand, is friendly toward Chandravali and neutral to Radha. Within these 4 main groups of gopis, there were hundreds upon hundreds of subcategories, and all were searching for Krishna. The gopis in Radha's group could not see their Yutheshwari or group leader, Sri Radha, so they were searching for her as well as for Krishna. All the other gopis were searching only for Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam's Canto 10, Chapter 30 describes the gopis' search for Krishna and how they all became Tadatmika with him. This means they became so absorbed in remembering his characteristics, such as the way he walked and how sweetly he talked, that they began to think that they themselves were him. The gopis became like mad persons, asking the trees, creepers, rivers, deer, and peacocks if they had seen Krishna. They asked the Tulasi plant, but when Tulasi did not respond, the gopis thought, "Oh, Krishna has warned her not to tell us where he is, and because she is his beloved, she refuses to utter a word." They asked the trees, but when they did not reply, the gopis thought, "These trees are male, and therefore they are Krishna's friends. He has no doubt told them not to tell us where he is. This is why they are remaining silent." When the gopis saw the creepers laden with flowers, they thought, "Krishna has touched these beautiful creepers with his fingers, and now they are so happy that they have no awareness of anything external. They cannot speak because they have taken leave of their external senses altogether." At first, the gopis concluded that Krishna was not to be found anywhere and that he would not return to them. They were somewhat consoled. However, when they finally noted his footprints, they followed his footprints for some distance until, to their surprise, they saw another set of footprints. The Vipaksha gopis, the rivals of Srimati Radhika, were trying to guess whose footprints these were. They could see that the second set of footprints belonged to some gopi. They guessed that the gopi must have worshipped God, and as a result, she had become so dear to Krishna that he took her with him and left the Ras dance. They did not think that her good fortune was the result of her worshipping Krishna, but worshipping God. Thus they spoke the following words. Anyo radhito nunam bhagwan haririshvara yanno vihaya govindaha prito yaman yadraha. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:30-28. Certainly, this particular gopi has perfectly worshipped the all-powerful personality of Godhead, since he was so pleased with her that Govinda abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. When Srimati Radhika's Swapaksha gopi saw those footprints, they immediately recognized them, as they were accustomed to serving her lotus feet and knew the symbols on them. Therefore, seeing her footprints next to Shri Krishna's overwhelmed those gopis with joy. After tracing the footprints a short distance, the gopis now saw only one set of footprints instead of two. They could not see the footprints of the gopi. They could only see Krishna's footprints, which were now an inch deeper in the earth. They assumed that when Krishna and his beloved gopi reached this spot, she had become tired and told him, "I cannot walk any further." He therefore took her up in his arms and carried her. Further on, the gopis noticed that in one spot the upper parts of the creepers were laden with blossoms, but that the lower part had far less, some having been scattered on the ground. From this they guessed that Krishna had seated his beloved in that place and decorated her with flowers. As the gopis proceeded further, they beheld that very gopi. Alone and unconscious of her surroundings, she was rolling on the ground, bitterly weeping. Ha nath raman preshtha kwasi kwasi mahabhuja dasyaste kripanayame sakhe darsya sannidhim. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:30-40. She cried out, "O Master, my lover, O dearmost, where are you? Where are you? Please, O mighty armed one, O friend, show yourself to me, your poor servant." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Madhavendra Puri used to repeat this verse, and as they did so, their hearts full of bhava or transcendental mood, tears would pour forth from their eyes. All of the gopis, Swapaksha, Suhrid, Tatastha and Vipaksha, then approached Srimati Radhika and expressed their sympathy, for it is the nature of the women to feel compassion for someone weeping. Although Chandravali generally feels envy towards Srimati Radhika, when she saw Radhika weeping and rolling on the ground, suffering more than all other gopis, even her heart softened. Another reason Chandravali felt sympathy for Radhika is that she is Radhika's sister. Actually, they are cousin sisters, as their fathers Chandrabhanu and Vrishabhanu are brothers. Srimati Radhika and Chandravali love each other, but there is also some rivalry between them. Chandravali is a little older than Radhika, but Radhika is more beautiful and qualified in every way. Upon seeing Krishna dancing with all other gopis and at the same time dancing with her, Radhika had left the Ras dance in a sulky mood or mana. Yet, when she was alone with Krishna in the forest, she wanted those gopis to be with Krishna and her. This is an example of Vyabhichari Bhav, in which mana and other bhavas rise up and subside and sometimes combine with each other. This is likened to one wave rising up and overtaking another wave, thus causing the water from both waves to merge. After that, the same process is repeated and the new waves appear. This is similar to the way in which Radhika's man disappeared due to her being immersed in Krishna's loving dealings with her. She then thought that all her Swapaksha gopis should come together, But since all the gopis were searching together, they all came. When the gopis found Srimati Radhika in this condition, they sprinkled some water on her lotus face. When she came to her external consciousness, they asked her, "What has upset you? Why are you so overwhelmed and weeping?" "As I was wandering throughout the forest with Krishna," Srimati Radhika replied, "I told him that I was no longer able to walk." Why had she said that to Krishna? It was not due to Saubhagyamada, the pride in her incomparable good fortune. Rather, her deep contemplation was as follows: "My Sakhis have left everything for me. They have no purpose other than to serve me. Yet I am here enjoying Krishna's company alone. This is not at all fair. If I arrange for all of them to come and join us, we can all enjoy Ras together. I should not be with Krishna alone." In the meantime, the other gopis had been gradually coming nearer and nearer. Krishna told her, "Quickly, come with me." "But I cannot see you," Srimati Radhika cried. Radhika's condition at this time is called Prem Vachitya. Krishna was actually sitting with her and worshipping her, yet she felt an intense mood of separation from him. She was unable to perceive that he was sitting right beside her. As the gopis came closer, Krishna thought, "If they see us alone together, they will become envious of Radhika and everything will be spoiled. There will be no Rasa Leela. I cannot let this happen." At that very moment, Krishna disappeared from that place and hid himself in a kunja, somewhere in the darkness. Radhika fell to the ground in distress, and it was then that the gopis found her. "What happened to you?" they now asked. Somewhat hiding her real bhava of selflessly wanting them to also dance with Krishna in Ras Leela, she simply told them, "I became maddened with the pride of my good fortune, just as you did. Now he has left me as well." Then, as one collective party, the gopis began to search for Krishna. Finally, they decided that the only way he could be found would be through Sankirtan, chanting his glories in a mood of deep separation from him. Thus, they returned to the bank of Yamuna and began to sing Jayati Te Dhikam, the first verse of their Gopi Gita.